We'll call this meeting back to order. Hope everybody had a good break. Just a announcement. This is my opinion, talking to a couple of board members here, being that we're through 3 items on a very long agenda. We knew this would be long with public comment. We wanted to hear that. It's important. We probably will wind up continuing this meeting until 2 weeks from now at some point. We'll go as long as you guys want to go. But Mr. Manager, that's something we talked about.
This is 1 or 2 items that we would ask the board to consider. One of them is not on the agenda, came up at the last minute, concerning the Viper Tower location in South Macon, working with Highway Patrol.
Okay.
County attorney has about 30 seconds worth of information and needs some final board action on that.
That's under old business.
That's under old business. Yeah.
Okay, let's make that. And we're doing the adjustments and approval of the agenda right now. We're just now getting to the agenda, folks. You realize that? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I would, I'm not sure how far you can get through this tonight. And some of the things that we have on here, there's no deadline on them, and they'll be fine to carry them over to the 28th.
Now you said what was the item 9A was going to be the
Viper Tower approval from the state highway.
About 2 minutes. Okay, that's item 9A. And then, Jack, was there something else you wanted to move up and take care of tonight?
Well, item 10A and B are, if the board takes any action on those 2 public hearings tonight. The other one is we would like to get item 12A, consideration of a revision in the appointment procedure.
Okay.
In order to get legal advertising done, we need to ask the board's consideration of that. And I'm not sure if the closed session would be necessary or not.
I would strongly recommend it.
Okay, so closed session, then after that, the closed session, all the other items we have on there, I think the chairman would carry over to the 28th unless the board wants to carry over.
And the consent agenda has 6 items. Is there anything there we would have to discuss? I think everybody's received copies of the budget amendments are plain. Tax releases, tax refunds.
I just had some questions for Mr. Cuppers as liaison about the health center lab fee. Okay. That's the only thing I had.
Or should we say we need to approve the minutes?
If you want to take that item off of the consent agenda.
Okay.
You can approve it.
Let's remove 11E, and we'll put that under. I guess that would be old business, correct?
Well, we
put it off to 28.
Yes.
That's not okay.
Let's take 11.
Just take it off. Take it off.
Okay.
11E to 28.
Okay. Here, my suggestion would be: do you all want to tackle 10A and B tonight?
Suits us.
Okay. We'll
set up all night. I'll set up all night.
All right, that sounds good. So old business, and we'll do items 10A and B. We probably, Chester, do need to approve the minutes. And we can let's go ahead and approve the consent agenda. If no one objects, we will remove item 11E, the health center lab fee. We'll remove that from the consent agenda, move that to the 28th, and then we will consider item 12A and the closed session. Okay. Any further corrections to the agenda?
Do you understand all the corrections outlined, Mr. Chairman?
I do.
I'm making a motion we approve the adjusted agenda, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. Beal, second, I believe, with Mr. Haven, to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion about that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Moving on to reports and presentations.
Real quickly, Mr. Chairman, I was in Raleigh talking about, we met with the subcommittee on the 122C. The 122C, strangely enough, is to make up of the boards of the new LMEs. We met with the new incoming secretary of DHSS, Mr. Albiala, and also Representative Nelson Dollar from Wake County, who's chairing that committee. We did meet with that committee. Myself and County Manager King from Swain County were part of a panel. Our position is and has will and will continue to be that county commissioners certainly need to be a part of these boards as we move forward. We followed that up with a 2-day meeting in Asheville with parts of this committee. As the mental health continues to change and the Medicaid waiver does come online, and it is coming. It looks like they'll end up with 12 LMEs statewide. Smoky will be one of those LMEs. We're talking about the makeups of the boards, and so I just want to give a report back to the board that not only with this board's consensus, but with the district's consensus, our position continues to be we still need to remain strong, and the county commissioner from each county needs to be represented on the board. I will travel back to Raleigh on Tuesday for further talks with the new secretary and meeting with Mr. Dollar and this committee as we continue to work on the LME governance issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if it helps, Mr. Dollar is a graduate of Appalachian State University, was up there with me.
He's not perfect. I just said he was up.
So that might help, but it might not. But he's a friend of mine. Has been for a long time.
You need to call him then.
Call him what?
Call him about this stuff.
Any other reports or presentations by any board member? Anything else?
Recommendation you guys talking about, says now.
It's to do with the planning board stuff, probably other than that. Any other reports or presentations? Chester, where anything, Jack?
Only thing I'd report is I had a chance to give a presentation before the Joint Legislative Committee on local government debt financing yesterday in Raleigh, and told them about all the fine work that's been done in Macon County with our school projects, our budget, and our financial situation. And we also have representatives from the League of Municipalities, from the Local Government Commission, and from several financing institutions. And I think the presentations went over very well. I don't know that any great changes will be coming down the pipe from the House or the Senate when it comes to local government finance. I think a lot of questions were answered at that meeting yesterday, but we had a chance to participate, and I think it was worthwhile.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. If there's no more reports or presentations, we'll move to old business. Item 9A. Chester, recognize you for that.
Yes, just very briefly, Mr. Chairman, the county has been working with the state of North Carolina in connection with Viper Tower lease. We have on a couple of occasions approved documents. However, there have been some changes to the description of property to be leased in the original lease agreement, memorandum of lease agreement, and sublease agreement. Those changes have been to make a better description, resulting from some survey work that was requested by the state. Those changes have been made to these documents. I have tonight a ground lease agreement, a memorandum of that lease, as well as a sublease agreement. I would ask that the board approve and authorize you as the chairman to sign those on behalf of the county this evening, so that those can be delivered to Mr. Randall with State Highway Patrol. He intends to put this out for bid, if not today, tomorrow.
Do we have questions for clarification, or I would entertain a motion? We have a motion by Commissioner Tate, second by Commissioner Cuthbert. And
Is this the last go around now, Chester, on this?
I trust that it is.
okay, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Chester, I'll sign that. No more old business. We'll move to new business. First item is the consideration of amendments to the planning board ordinance, which we had the hearing earlier.
Mr. Chairman, since I've been so quiet this evening, I'd like to go ahead and address and maybe get the ball rolling on this.
Listen.
Can y'all hear me okay?
No, probably a little closer.
How about now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. As all of y'all know, I'm the newest member of this board, and I think as y'all get to know me a little bit better, you'll come to find out that I'm a logical thinker, and I'm a pretty efficient thinker, and that's just two of the traits that I'm proud of in myself. You'll also find out that I can become very passionate about things. So if my eyes start watering as I'm talking about this, it's not because I'm crying, it's because my eyes are sweating.
And you're the way to talk.
Yeah, I'll touch off on that. You know, I signed up this afternoon to rerun for election for this board, and I've only had 2 months to get used to it, but I can honestly say I'm not sitting up here because I want a pat on the back or because I need to lose more hair than what I already have. I'm sitting up here because I want to make a difference for this county. I love this county. About a 6th generation from this county at a gold mine, and my kids are hoping to be a 7th, and I'm hoping that they're going to have the same opportunities that I was given, as well as my predecessors. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm pro steep slope. I'm not going to tell you that I'm anti-steep slope. I'm going to keep that to myself. But I will tell each one of y'all that I am pro planning. I'm pro planning with my family. I'm pro planning with my business. And I'm pro planning for this county. I think it's all a good thing. I've heard recently that I'm going to be that I am the new liaison to the planning board. And I hate to say this, but I've actually heard that that's political suicide right now. That, oh my gosh, I mean, just looking at the turnout tonight and the various opinions, this, that, and the other, and it's going to be awful, and you're going to kill yourself running for the next election. I don't necessarily believe that. Again, as I just said, I'm an efficient, I'm a logical thinker, and I want to stand up here and I want to make a difference. So with that in mind, I don't mind this challenge of trying to help the planning board along its way. I've got 2 primary goals for the planning board. I want them to be effective, and I want them to be able to reach a legitimate compromise on what they're discussing. And if we have a good cross-section of this entire county, and they're able to do those 2 things, they're going to be such a better tool for us as commissioners. And again, I'm going to repeat this again. I'm efficient and logical thinking. So with that in mind, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion that we approve the amendment to the planning board ordinance of term limits.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that for purposes of discussion.
Okay, so I was gonna suggest we need to do 1 or 2 things. We can discuss this further for clarification, or we would need a motion and a second to put it on the floor. And Commissioner Tate, I think you did make that motion, and Commissioner Cuppers seconded the motion, and that motion would be to approve the amended.
It would be the amendment to the planning board ordinance, which was read here before in the public hearing.
Okay. And I think I'll let you have
This is the term limit.
Yes. Is that right, Mr. Tate? That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, that was
As well as adjustments to the town, Franklin and town Highland.
right. Those are both in there.
Alternative. So with the motion second, we're now in discussion, and we'll open the floor for discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I got us into this, and let me tell you what I want to talk about.
And
Can y'all hear me? Because I really have a hard time with that microphone. LC, are you getting it back there? All right, good enough.
Let me say this now. I don't know when would be a good time to say this. I've got several things I'm going to say. But I'm going to say this before Bobby speaks. And I know we've got several members of the planning board here. My direction personally has been to clarify roles. Larry and I, we talked about that, talked about it with Carl, talked about it with most members of the planning board. Certainly not to do away with the planning board, to minimize the planning board. My goal personally is to make it an efficient process where it's an advisory board, and when I've said that, I'm not talking about changing roles. I've heard people say that our board is out to minimize or change the plan. And even when I said that at our board retreat, my friend Ron said, well, in the way it's always been. They're an advisory board. And I couldn't agree with that more. And so that was my very reason for saying it, was just to clarify that. We recognize that, and so we recognize that the planning board is an advisory board to this board, and the buck stops here, all that language. And I guess my goal is just to clarify that, and so everybody, you guys understand that, we understand that, but I'm not sure the public understands that. I'm not blaming anybody with that. And my goal, folks, Betty Wolf knows me as well as anybody in this room, and she sat as I chaired the school board for a long time, and she'll tell you where my heart is. I've only done this 40 years, so a lot of this stuff that people talk about, I wasn't here, okay? A lot of these guys weren't here. My goal is to move forward from today. Everybody can be a Monday morning. I'm an excellent Monday morning quarterback. I can tell you exactly what Josh Brooks should have done Friday night, especially if we didn't lose it this year. My goal is not to talk about last Friday night. My goal is to talk about next Friday night. Does that make sense? And I want to clarify something else with Bobby sitting here. This thing got real elevated. A lot of emotion involved in it, which I don't think should happen. I'll make that clear. I think I operate better when talking logically and clearly and calmly, and that's the way I do things. That's the way I will do things. But when I call Bobby Cuppers, and he will tell you this, I didn't take him off as planning board liaison as any kind of political move or anything. But we don't talk Republican, Democrat. I think he knows I'm a Republican. You know I'm a Republican, don't you?
Your son told me
Okay.
that.
But I couldn't agree with Jimmy Goodman more. You take the politics out of it. When you're elected or selected, in my case, to fill my unexpired term, I recognize that. Your goal is to work for Macon County. It's not to do that as a Republican, to do that as a Democrat. Fine, stand up for your party, be proud of who you are, what you are, and I am. But when I asked Bobby about the planning board, we talked about it, and he'll tell you, I didn't say, Bobby, I'm jerking you off that liaison because you didn't do a good job or because I want to change things politically. That did not happen. We talked about it. We had a couple new opportunities. What was it, Ronnie? The LBJ that wanted a liaison, and also the library, and also Brian was our health board liaison. So I talked to Bobby about that. Those are pretty busy boards. Bobby's a talented guy. He's a smart guy. So I asked him if he'd take the health board, the library board. He said he would. I said the planning board takes a lot of time. Do you want me to maybe, how about Jimmy, since he's had some experience? I think that'd be a great idea, he said. So I just want to make that clear that I think Bobby's done a good job as a liaison between our board and the planning board. And I think he's a good guy as far as that goes. And I just wanted to say that publicly, that I thought he did an excellent job as a liaison. And Jimmy, maybe I didn't do you any favors to point you that, don't know. But I know you'll do a good job as well. So, sorry, Mr. Pepper.
Oh, no. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I need to just pass the microphone off. There's nothing left for me to say. This question as I am to public speaking. I just want to make a couple comments about the term limits. Term limits in their own concept, I have no problem with. I have no problem with the term limited board. What I have a problem with is when those term limits are not aimed at the county, when they are not aimed at a board, but where they appear to be aimed at individual citizens on a board with whom we disagree. I have an issue with that. I would like to see us go ahead and invoke term limits tonight, and I won't make the motion yet. We'll talk it out, let everybody talk it out, but I'm going to give you my opinion. I believe the term limits are fine. They should be universal. It should be across the board. There should be no county advisory board that does not have term limits, unless it is a board that we do not control, that is controlled and term limited by state statute or by federal statute or initially by ordinance, although I think over time we can take care of that too. Second, yes, we have an abundance of talented people in this county, but I would hate to think, I will tell you without question, Mr. Chairman, if I was on the planning board for 6 years and I was really into planning and I was doing a bang up job and you took me off that planning board for 3 years, you would not see me again. You would not see me again. That is too long. So I would recommend, for consideration by my fellow board members, the possibility of making it a 1-year hiatus instead of a 3-year hiatus. Now, there's one other problem that we've got, and we all know we've got it, and so we might as well talk about it. There are boards which aren't as glamorous, and I don't know where they got up, the planning board was glamorous, but there's some boards that are just they're not as dramatic. They don't get their name in the paper, which I've always thought was a good thing. To not get your name in the paper. But they're just as important, but we don't have a waiting list of people standing by to sit on those boards. And so I think we would have to have some sort of mechanism by which, if a board created a vacancy by a person reaching their term limits, and no one has applied to be on that board, then we simply put language in our appointment policy that we've got that says, if you get within a certain amount of time, let's just take a hypothetical, 30 days, if you don't have an appointment, if you don't have a volunteer within 30 days, then we can turn to the person who's in the job and appoint them again. Because there's not a waiting list. That will probably never happen in the entire foreseeable future of the planning board, that we would actually get to an opening and not have anybody there. But I think if you're looking at the library board, if you're looking at community funding pool, if you're looking at a lot of these boards, that we're going to come into the situation. So those are the things that I would like to see us consider. I am not a fan. Oh, and there's one other. This is the 500-pound gorilla in the room, so we might as well talk about this one. As I said in my opening argument when I was talking about not aiming the imposition of term limits at individuals, I believe that retroactivity, I know radioactivity is a word, I used to work in that, but is retroactivity a word? I don't know. But by making them retroactive, to me, it is a thinly veiled effort to aim those term limits at individuals that you know are not eligible because they've been on the board for a long time. I think we should do it this way. And this is just my opinion. Y'all can hash this out. But I would love to see us say everybody gets one more. Okay? If you're on a board right now, you're on your first term. Everybody gets one more appointment. And then if you were term limited at the end of that one appointment, then you are now term limited. Nobody in this room could say we're aiming that at any individual because everybody's playing on the same level playing field. And that's all I got to say. And I don't know, y'all tell me what you think about that, but I'm opposed to term limits. Let me just say that. I entered this night opposed to term limits. I think we have term limits. Just like I think we have term limits for the Senate and the Congress, for those of you that are out there. It's called November the 4th or 5th or 6th. You can vote us out, you can vote them. Everybody's got term limits. Okay? There's no office in America that doesn't have term limits. You know, we can vote anybody out. And so I think that I'm against them. But in the interest of consensus and compromise, which I heard that word over here, gosh, I like that word, because I think compromise today too oftentimes is equated with weakness. Now let me tell you what, I've done both. And sometimes it takes a lot more strength to compromise than it does to stand in a room and say it's my way or the highway. So with that said, in the interest of compromise, I'd like to put that forth for consideration.
Is that a motion for an amendment, Mr. Cummings?
It will be after you guys get done discussing.
Okay.
If I can get, let's see, I'll have to get Mr. Tate. He made the motion, so he'd have to change it. And now I got to find out where he is. We'll get back to you. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, your motion's up.
Well, a while ago, whenever I got up and I talked a little bit, I've got something that I want to say, and I'm not putting it in a motion. I'm putting it in a suggestion. And it's where I've come from all along on something. I would enjoy seeing Macon County have a strong planning board, one that we can depend on, one's going to treat us fair. It's an advisory board, and I know you spend a lot of time on it. I've seen it. I've actually only missed about 2 or 3 planning board meetings in 2 years. And when I have, it's been when I had a conflict of another commissioner meeting or something, that's why I didn't come. And I've talked to some of the other gentlemen up here behind the scene about this. I think as being a commissioner, I've got a big job out here, and so does the rest of them, taking care of our county, period. Whether we're trying to do the best we can to keep regulations we don't need away, or considering regulations we do need. And there's a very fine line, ladies and gentlemen, in between that. I'm kind of like this here. I don't want you stealing the gas out of the car. I'll give you some. I don't want you stealing my money. I'll let you have some if I have any. But I don't want you stealing my property rights neither. But also, property rights always is not considered just that. You've got to figure the next person's property right. I'm all for having a strong, very strong planning board. And yes, I did make that comment, if we couldn't do it, to abolish it. I'm not backing up to say I didn't say it. I want to see us have a good planning board. It's just like I was talking to some of these gentlemen right here about regulations. That well inspection, that's something I don't see and wouldn't vote for. The thing about this, the one problem that I have saw with the planning board, and this is only a recommendation, all right? If we make a motion or have consent up here among us to give a project to you, I think where we know exactly what we have asked you to do, it should be typed by our secretary and each one of us sign it and have our liaison to take it and present it to you. This way, I'm not saying, Bobby, don't you even take that as I'm wrong. Somebody, or what, no, wait, don't hold your hand. Somebody said that I said that you was a bad liaison. That was not what I meant for that statement when it got around to it. But if we have got a signed copy of what we know is going to that planning board, we know what we asked you for advice for. Is that a fair statement? At the same time, if you've got questions about it, you need to bring it back to us, send it back to us in writing. And if this is done and we have kept a track of communication this close, I think it's going to take this argument out of it, he said, she said, and we're going to make something that's going to work for everybody. On this last question that, or on my comment on this term limits, I don't want to put somebody in a bind on something. But I recommend that we start those term limits tomorrow. There's a reason why I didn't say right now, but that's my suggestion. And I know there's some big controversy right here that I left the door open right then with what I said. Everybody else may go against this, but it's my recommendation. Let me see how I'm going to say this, because I want to say as honest as I know how to be. I think Lewis Penland is a good man, I really do. And I don't know how to say it any clearer than me and him don't agree with our politics. Is that fair enough for me to state that? But if we've done this and if you did consider this ordinance change exactly the way we presented at our last meeting, and that was done, I'm going to look right out there and tell you, I'd vote for Lewis right now to go right back on there. And let's shut this mess up, get it to working, have a good, strong planning board that will work for us, and go on to things that is more important to citizens of Macon County. Because I think right now, the Macon County needs us worse than they ever have.
As chairman, I have no problem with what we tasked the planning board with, to put that in writing. I think typically that would be in our minutes, Chester, certainly signed by myself and county manager, but if everybody needs to sign that particular thing, I have no, I mean, I think we could just do that. I don't think
I think the
any action.
clerk of the board is responsible for making sure that those decisions are properly recorded, and the minutes are indeed approved by the board. So there is an opportunity to look at those. If additional steps are desired, you can certainly do that.
And that would require board action if we could just do that. Mr. Taylor, do you have other comments?
Now, I'm ready to make a motion. It's good enough.
to amend your motion.
If everybody's through speaking on that.
I will speak, just because I think I have to.
Don't start making fun of me or nothing.
You know, the planning board, I don't think we have a weak planning board. Let me state that up front. I think we've had a wonderful planning board that's brought things to this board that we have not acted on for a lot of different reasons. You have had a huge change on this board that's sitting in front of you tonight, from where a lot of these things started, and you were given a list of things to do. This planning board done them unequivocally. All you've been done has been lampooned, laughed at, and that's not right. The planning board has done a wonderful job. On the subject of term limits, I think I've made myself clear from the first time it was mentioned, the term limits can stop right here. But I like Mr. Cupper's in spirit of cooperation. If it's worded, if the amendment is worded right, we don't have retroactive term limits. And we give each one a fair shot. Because cohesiveness and the people that's on this planning board, a lot of boards experiences is really needed and necessary, but no more than the planning board. And all of you will agree to that. It is hard to bring somebody up to speed on the planning board on a lot of these things that drag on. Because we have sat and argued for hours, Larry Stinger, on 2 words. You know it's true. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think what we've come out of the planning board is something that most folks can live with. So I will be interested in hear the motion on the amendment, Mr. Chairman. And if it's worded right, I would love to be able to support it. If not, I will certainly vote against it.
So you vote for it or against it?
You gotta vote against it after you vote for it.
Okay.
Let's hear the whole motion.
All right. Are you gonna?
I'll do my best.
And let
Sorry,
me just
for
let me just clarify for with Chester, if we make some recommendation, I hear them gonna make some suggestions here to sort of meet on this thing. You can make those changes without rewriting that entire document.
I think we can, and I'm prepared to do that this evening, and I would need just a couple minutes.
Okay. I didn't know we were gonna be here, so just trying to do things the right way.
I see several members of the planning board in here that actually have the privilege of serving with. And, I'm being honest when I'm saying I'm actually looking forward to serving with all of y'all again as a liaison, doing my best to communicate back and forth the ideas coming from this board as well as from your board, as Mr. Hayden was stating there. I think my notes that I just quickly jotted down from Mr. Cuppers was we changing, which I'm fine with because this is very similar to the way the town of Highlands does it, and I think it works well for them. That we'll have a 1-year period off versus a 3-year period off. So it would be 2 3-year terms of service with 1 year off. I'm in agreement with making this with basically every other board in the county. It's not.
Right. They'll all be, but those will be, not in this ordinance, but those will be handled outside of your motion, but yes, eventually that's true.
Okay. So I'm in agreement with that. I'm in agreement with the first term of service being served, so every member would have 1 more term, is my understanding. And then at least 1 more, yeah. And then was that it? There was a question about the appointment language.
Oh, that'll actually be outside the motion.
Okay.
Because what we're dealing with is just the planning board ordinance. When we get to 12A, we'll talk about how to fix it. So,
Are you comfortable?
I'm very comfortable. Are you comfortable with that?
I think I have the directive.
Okay. So you've amended your motion to make those changes?
That's correct.
You accept that?
I accept that.
Second.
And with the understanding, outside the motion, gentlemen, when we get to 12A, we're going to take care of the universal term limit issue.
Well, and let me say a couple things. I do agree with the idea of term limits. Not philosophically, I believe in it for all levels of government or whatever. And I've served on a lot of boards, you guys have too, that you can serve 1 term or 2 terms, then you have to come off, and even in my church committees, generally you serve 1 or 2 terms, and you have to sit out at least a year. So
How many terms you on the school board?
I was on 3 terms, and then I didn't run. And then I came back and ran again, because Betty Walker called me into it, standing in the campground. So I did term limit myself. I served 3 terms, then I didn't run, then I came back and ran, was elected 2 more times, and then didn't run after that. So I do believe in that. And if I understand you correctly, this term limit thing would begin immediately?
With
the changes, yeah. And other than that,
with the 1-term cap.
you've amended to where you come off for 1 year, and then you could be reappointed. And let me point out the obviousness is sort of what I've said all along. If, the fact is, if there are members on there that you don't want or don't feel like they're productive, then you need to have the intestinal fortitude to stand up and vote them off. And that's,
No change is necessary.
and we don't need to change that, because we can do that anyway.
Chairman, the other issue on there that was included in that original was that all terms would be 3 instead of 3.
Correct.
I don't think.
He didn't-
We didn't amend that one's fine.
Okay.
So let me see if I've got it. As soon as they finish this term they're in now, they're gonna get another term.
They're up for reappointment, eligible, but not automatic.
They still
I
have to
think
apply.
the easiest
But
way to
in other
look
words,
at
if they
it,
pull 2 terms, 3 terms, 1 term,
I think the easiest way to look at it is regardless of how long you've been on, you get 1 reappointment, 1.
And you get
One
one
reappointment
opportunity.
opportunity, and then then if you are past 6 years, whether that be 12 years, 15 years, or just 6 years, you are the interim member.
they're
And
gonna get one
everybody
more
gets
after the
one,
finish.
right, everybody gets 1 reappointment opportunity if you're currently
It's
on
an
the board.
opportunity,
That's what I said. If there's someone that we don't want there, then you vote them off, and that is. If I understand that. Other discussion?
Just for clarification, is that an amendment to the original motion and the seconded?
Well, just as
Done
a
our-
point, given that this is an ordinance, and given that we definitely want to make it right, the board would allow me the latitude of about 5 minutes. I can put it in black and white for you, read it, make sure it's what everybody wants.
It's a great
Hold that-
idea.
It's a great idea, so we hold that
So
motion.
you want to hold the vote on it?
I think that would be appropriate, we'll read it, and that way we've got it correct.
You have to suspend till you come back.
If that's acceptable.
That's accepted. Okay.
Y'all can move on, unless you've got something.
Even though we have,
You know where I am.
even though we have an open motion, we have a motion second, we're in discussion phase then. Do we need to call for a vote, or do we need to just
We
recess till
want to
you
make a
come back?
motion to approve the language clarified by the county attorney so that the final motion covers all the points that the board outlined in their discussion.
That would be appropriate.
What, say it again?
Y'all kidding? Roberts is wrapping me around the axle tonight.
I just want to do it the right way. Say it again.
Let's see, what the county attorney is proposed to do is go ahead and commit to writing the discussion that y'all had and
He's
without,
gonna write it now.
before you actually vote, so that when you vote, you're voting on the actual motion that covers all the points that y'all discussed.
There's no misunderstanding.
Okay.
We just don't want there to be
I understand that.
But with the motion open.
What do we do right now?
Can we go on, or can we?
Well, I think Tiff needs to be here for whatever, if we're gonna go to B.
But we
We'll
just,
wait on it.
we'll just,
Not fast.
It's that important. I mean, I think it's that
I think
important.
You all right with that?
go right to that.
Do you wanna go ahead and take care of the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting on this?
Can we do that with an open motion? That's what I'm asking. Can we go ahead and do some business, or we just wait to get back?
I think with the consent of the entire board, you're fine.
Okay. Does everybody consent to go on and do the consent agenda or whatever? Okay with that? Okay, we'll drive on. We're gonna move to item 11, A, B, C, D, and F. We meeting. That's the consent, this is a consent agenda, includes the minutes, budget amendments, tax releases, tax refunds, and amended ordinance concerning procedures for disposing of personal property. Board members received copies of all this in advance. Any questions? And if not, motion to approve be in order.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second?
Second for the purpose of discussion, Mr.
Sure,
Tate's got it.
Yeah, we have some
Okay,
discussion.
we have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
On item D in the consent agenda, the last sentence says, Tax Administrator Richard Lighter is recommending approval of the Johnson request, but not the Downs request. So are we approving the Downs request? Or
You want to approve the one recommended?
we're approving his
Only approve the one that's
recommendation?
recommended by the tax assessor.
Correct.
Any more questions on that, Mr. Tate?
No, sir.
Mr. Manager, I do have a question on 11L, amendment of ordinance concerning procedure for disposal of personal property. With this, would that solve the problems that we've had with vehicles and is this what, by reading this, is this?
This is something that County Attorney and I have discussed on several occasions. If you recall, the board took action some time back to authorize the manager to dispose of personal property by legal means that was valued under $5,000. Another option that we have is to have electronic auction through gov deals and so forth. And the county attorney wanted to make sure that all those options were covered in this. Anything over $5,000 in value will be brought back to the board for final approval. But this gives us all the options through our office to dispose of anything valued less than $5,000 under the means approved by the general statutes.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. I do have, the electronic is fine if the county can earn more money, but I really don't see where it gives the Macon County citizens who paid for this stuff the first opportunity to bid on this stuff. They're the ones who paid for the stuff, so.
Well, but this doesn't force us to use electronic. We still can have the negotiated offers under $5,000.
So we can go out to the county garage and all those vehicles there, we can have an open auction on a Saturday.
Could do that. That's another option as well.
I just wanna make sure that the people that paid for it gets an opportunity to, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're satisfied with that, I'm satisfied with
I'm
that.
satisfied it gives us enough flexibility to do what we need to do with all these pieces of property that are worth less than $5,000. In most cases, they're worth less than $500 in a lot of cases. So they're very, very minor values. So I think what this does is basically give us an opportunity to use all the remedies that are approved legally to dispose of personal property. And I would say our first option would be to try and make sure that the taxpayers of Macon County have the first opportunity to purchase this property. And if we can do that, then that's our first option. If we don't have any luck doing that, there are other options that we can use, including formal bids or public auctions and electronic auctions and so forth.
So with number 4, Mr. Manager, to make sure I understand, the Macon County Manager may publish notice of such sales, exchanges, or electronic auction. What you're saying is that we would advertise it locally to give the local taxpayers an opportunity first,
Yeah.
and then if that's not successful, we can move on.
We'd like to do that. What we've had in the past, I think, as a matter of record, when we've had just a mass auction for vehicles, for example, we might get $100 or $200 for it. On some of these electronic auctions, other counties have been able to get several $1,000s for the same item, and it's a matter of getting that money back to the taxpayers. So it gives them an opportunity. If someone in the county wants to pay market price or value for that, they got the first option to do that. Otherwise, it's maximizing the return back to the taxpayer because all the money goes back to general fund.
As long as they have an opportunity.
As long as
That's
they
the
have an
main.
opportunity, absolutely.
That's all thing I care about, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yes,
Any other questions?
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
To that? Mr. Bill, gov deals, I've had experience with it in the past, and like Jack was saying, where you try maybe have a public auction, you can bring in more money back to the county, which also, you know, registering for GovDeals is simple. You don't have to be like, you know, a business owner to create a GovDeals account. So like if you even, you know, as a citizen wanted to go on GovDeals and create an account, you can, which allows you to bid on the items along with the other pulled people as well.
It would be easier for people that make County bid on these items than it would be for people that make County bid on items that are surplus by the state of North Carolina.
Understood. My only question. Any other questions? Take your question.
Yeah, I did. Jack, please excuse my ignorance, we went behind the ears, but can we make an amendment to the ordinance?
Which ordinance are you?
I don't know, it says consideration of the ordinance, making revisions to the ordinance for certain procedures for the state of Florida.
I think that is, I'll have to ask the attorney about that, but that's not a, I don't think that's an ordinance that requires public hearing. That's not an ordinance that requires public hearing there.
Any other discussion or questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes.
Check and see if the attorney's had 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we give him 4 anyway.
That's $82.
Can we go on to 12A, gentlemen? While we're here, that would be consideration of revision to appointment procedure.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, if you would, I think that would be very critical because you've got some appointments that are coming up, they're gonna be coming up. The appointment procedure that the board approved sometime back,
Can y'all hear me? No?
can you hear me?
No.
Okay.
The appointment procedure that the board approved some time back, that was actually adopted by the board, included one item that says that openings on the board would be vacancies for various authorities, boards, commissions, and committees will be published in the Franklin Press. That is time consuming, costly, and delays the entire process, and we think that most people would have better access, immediate access, continued access if we advertise these vacancies on the county's website as soon as they become available. And I think that would be a much quicker way to get the word out. And as soon as a vacancy's occurred, 30 days or 60 days when we're notified of that, we could post those on the website in a conspicuous place. So that would be very evident to anybody who looked at the county website that we had vacancies and openings on these commissions or committees or boards. And so what we're asking is the board to consider changing the wording in the appointment authority to let us post that instead of publishing it in the local newspaper, put it on our county website and publish it there.
To complete that thought that we had a minute ago about universal term limits, I'm going to hand out a piece of paper that I just threw together on the off chance that we might get to this point. I just took a chance, and there it is. I'd like to add a couple other things. And you can see in here that I've made the change that the county manager asked for in the very first paragraph. Changed the third paragraph on the second page to read. There's a part on the back too, guys. It's front and back. Vacancies for the various authorities, boards, commissions, and committees will be published on the Macon County website. Okay, so that takes care of what you wanted. Then it describes term limits, and I ask you just to read that. I'm not going to read it out loud unless you want me to read it indirectly, but this does the two things. It makes term limits universal to all boards not governed by North Carolina statute, current county ordinance, or federal regulations. Now, eventually the goal will be, and we'll have to have another public hearing for that, would be to take all the term limit language and have it reside in this document outside of all ordinances. That would be my goal if you guys agree. It sets up the 3 on or 2 on, 1 year off, just as we've approved for the planning board at this point. That would apply everywhere. And it provides us, if you look down in the In the ensured continuity of these boards, the following procedure will be followed. Advertisement, if no one applies within 30 days of the vacancy, then you can appoint the person that's already in there. Okay, so that takes care of that part that I talked about. Is everybody with me so far? Then on the back, it talks about implementation, and it says term limits will be effective once the Board of Commissioners approves this policy. Term limits will not be retroactive. Any member of the Board or Committee at the time of enactment of this policy will be eligible for one more appointment, regardless of how long they have served prior to enactment, before they will be term limited. Any appointments pending on the date of enactment can be completed, and those individuals will be term limited at the end of that term. So that pretty well wraps all that up. And the one thing that I also added, if you look at the bottom of the second paragraph under term limits, if for some reason a member of the board is not reappointed after his or her first term, they would not be eligible to reapply for a period of 1 year. So that's kind of all the things I said in the first, but we have to separate it out because of the way the public hearing was advertised. We had to do the planning board, and then we have to do this. Ultimately, Mr. Chairman, with the board's concurrence, I would like to see us move all the term limit language into this document and govern term limits from our appointment procedure.
As far as this discussion,
That's just discussion, and I'll make a motion.
so what Jack's asking for is just the advertising procedure. Let me add one thing, if you don't mind, just because I recognize everybody doesn't have a computer, most people do, but at least at our meetings, either once a month or twice a month, that when we have those appointments come up, that we make them public at the meeting, and that way these folks have a way of printing that. I guess we're asking them to do it free instead of paying for it. But I'm just saying, to me, that makes sense to make it public at our meeting, and then in addition to that, put it on the website. I'm fine with that.
I think that's fine, and the website is just another way to get it out in the public, but before, what we need to do is go ahead, and I know you probably can't hear me, but I'll talk a little bit louder. What we need to do is exactly what you're saying. When an appointment is coming up on a board or a commission or committee,
Announce it here.
announce that here at a board meeting 30 or 60 days prior to that becoming available.
And put it
so
up
everybody
there.
knows.
I can agree with that.
We change it.
So that wouldn't be, I think that needs to continue to be a part of the process.
So the motion would need to be that any upcoming openings on boards or commissions would be announced at board meetings, what did you say, Jack, 60 days prior?
Well, yeah, as long as we can keep up with it, whatever the board desires.
Can we do that? Is that doable?
At
30
least
say
30
30
days, at least 30 days prior to the opening, prior to the, 60 days would be better, but at least 30 days.
At
prior.
least, it'll be announced to the board and at the board meeting at least 30 days prior.
Prior to the vacancy occurring.
Prior to vacancy, and it would be advertised on the county's website. Is that what I understand?
Mr. Chairman, I think the motion goes further than that, though. If we're going to, in fact, have universal term limits, then we've got to adopt language similar to this in order to make that happen. It will not happen any other way. It will not happen where we're sitting right now. And I kind of thought that's what we were on the edge of, so I'm hoping that.
Well, and I think you can do it. It covers it. What I was asking for is to be able to advertise it on the website.
Absolutely.
But if the board wants to amend the appointment process, which would include that,
Right, and that's
it would
what-
include not only
That's
what
what
we
I'm
asked
saying.
for. as
I
far
would
as
like, I'd
advertising.
like to see us consider, it
The
doesn't
other
have to be
issues
this
that you
language,
brought up.
but language like that, that would include,
Could we, let me suggest this. Because you sort of we got bullet points we've talked about as far as doing term limits for all boards, is what we're talking about. If we agreed in theory to do that,
can you gestorize this?
Can you come back with us next month or whenever?
28.
With you're talking about.
Outside of ordinance.
Outside of ordinance.
As board policy.
Right, we're
Oh,
talking.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
That way we just,
I'll be comfortable with that.
again, I don't think we know exactly what we're voting on unless it's written down, which I know you got bullet points
Nope.
on there, but we don't have it.
No, it's not
And this
bullet
will
points,
be
it's a
about-
change.
Yeah.
I used to write those for a living, so it's a change based on the instruction that you already have,
Form of a resolution.
line by line, but we'll put it in
If
the
you-
form of a resolution.
Okay,
It'll be fine.
okay.
Yeah, it ain't bullet.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that we suspend the consideration or revision of the appointment procedure until the 28th.
I would second, I'll
However, I do think that you want to go ahead
We do
and
want to go ahead and
authorize
give
a
checks.
change to,
Yes.
Okay.
how you're gonna advertise
I agree.
these positions for either.
Yeah.
That's right, I got you.
Okay.
And then one
Yeah,
of the
got
reasons
it.
for that, Mr. Chairman, I'll take the blame or the credit or whatever you wanna call it for that. When the policy was being developed and eventually approved by the board, one of the things that we said we would do is advertise those in the press. We've had several applications for members who want to serve on the planning board that have not been advertised in the press. We wanna make sure that everybody has an opportunity to do that. If the board approves this, change in policy, for advertising these open positions, we can make all those positions available on the county website as early as tomorrow morning. So before you meet again in 2 weeks, we would have to make sure everybody had an opportunity who was interested in making an application to serve on the planning board or whatever boards come up within the 2-week period. They would have an opportunity to apply for that.
It's where, okay, let's deal with this. I think the county manager's request is stated before, is to advertise openings, at our meetings at least 30 days prior to that opening, and then also to advertise it on the county's website. Someone-
30 days?
We could do that. The one that we have now, the one that's pending now, the appointments to the planning board, two
Okay.
appointments to the planning board that are pending now have been out for a couple of months, but they haven't been published in the paper. But,
They've been published in the paper over and over and over.
well, they probably
As far
have,
as I'm
but not
concerned.
an official classified section
Well,
of the paper, so, if we could
Let me
go
make
ahead
the
and put
motion
those
that-
in there.
Go ahead.
Let me make the motion that we change the application procedure to say that the county manager will cause the vacancies to be advertised on the Macon County website and an announcement at the meeting closest to.
Do we have a second?
There's no time.
No.
Do we have a second to the motion? Okay. We have a motion and a second.
On the, what you're talking about, advertising.
Just advertising the position on the county website versus put it in the newspaper.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? Okay, that passes, Haber voted no. All right, Chester. You just want, I don't think you need to read the whole thing again. We've read it. Change what, maybe read what you changed.
I think the, main provisions that you need to look at is beginning at the bottom of page 1, where it talks about section 1.7 of the ordinance being changed. And if you'll read A, B, and C on the next page, I think you're fine. I think I've captured the essence of what you're talking about. And I certainly don't mind to just, for the benefit of the public, if you like, I'll read those provisions if you like.
If you'd like to read those, please. And just tell me if everything's the same except.
Everything in this will be the same as heretofore read, with the exception to changes to section 1.7. And I'm just gonna pick up where that starts. In section 1.7 of an ordinance to establish a planning board for Macon County is amended, and as it presently exists, is hereby amended to read as follows. 1.7, appointees may be reappointed for successive terms. However, notwithstanding the foregoing, the following rules shall apply, control, and prevail. A, no member of the planning board may serve on the planning board for more than 6 consecutive years. However, notwithstanding that, or the foregoing, those members of the planning board who have been appointed or reappointed and who are serving on the planning board as of the effective date of this provision may be reappointed for one additional 3-year term, even though such reappointment would result in such member of the planning board serving in excess of 6 consecutive years. B, subject to the provisions of section 1.7A above, any member of the planning board who has served 6 consecutive years or more as a member of the planning board shall wait at least 1 year before becoming eligible to serve another term as a member of the planning board. And C, that is unchanged, but it reads that the present terms of the members of the planning board members the present terms of the members of the planning board members as of the effective date of this provision shall not be affected by the provisions of section 1.7A and B.
Do we not also change 1.4 for the seat number 10 from 4 to 3 years?
That was as it was heretofore.
No, the change, that's the way it is prior to.
That's the way it was read during the public hearing.
Yeah.
Last sentence.
Last sentence.
Okay, does
Are
that,
there questions?
does that represent your motion? Does that represent your second? All right, discussion? Call the question. Okay, no other discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Mr. Hagan voted no.
Can we get a copy of that, please?
It is my understanding, Mr. Attorney, that you're going to prepare the language for us to convert this to universality at the next.
To your boards that are not.
That are not government-controlled state statute or ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for the 29th.
I would love it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
I said put the term language on the other boards as a basis of time.
Well, we'll debate that. And that comes up. Okay, wow. Moving on to item 10B, consideration of the amendment to the subdivision ordinance. I don't think we need to read that. Chester, state the name of that ordinance.
We've already read it at the public hearing. I'll certainly get that description to you once again. It's entitled Amendment to Subdivision Ordinance of the County of Macon, North Carolina. And again, that's as read here for this evening. Public hearing.
Okay.
Copy of it.
All right. For the purposes of discussion, again, we can discuss this for clarification. If everyone clearly understands the proposed change to the ordinance, then a motion and second would be in order so we can discuss it. And then you can vote it up or down. But we need to proceed with discussion under one of those two areas. So
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of completeness of the discussion, it may be that you would ask the county manager to just give a brief summary of why this amendment has been brought before you. And perhaps you may want to speak with the county planner as well as code enforcement.
And I personally would, I just don't, do we need to do that before motion second, or do we put it?
I think it can be done either way.
Okay.
ordinance amendment before the board is to strike the requirement in the subdivision ordinance of putting the statement read by the county attorney on plans for proposed subdivisions. And the reason for that, I think discussion in the past has been that although the slope hazard maps are very important as a planning tool, very important as a soil resource, they are not to the specific degree of detail as our flood zone maps are in order to delineate specific pieces of property.
Whether they're in or out.
Whether they're in or out. The scale of the slope hazard maps is 1 foot to 24,000, 1 to 24,000, I believe. Is that correct?
No.
What's the scale on the slope hazard maps prepared by the state?
Maybe on the big acre map, they're good down to 1 inch to 500 feet or 1 to 6 is the scale that we're done on.
Do we have those?
The paper maps that were distributed to the county and with the disclaimer has been to 24,000. 1 inch equals 24,000, which is disclaimer.
It was my understanding that
We
those.
can't hear. Just bring it up here so we can hear. Maybe that's just important.
Yeah, step to the microphone and tell us a little bit about it, but I'll go back while Mr. Morgan has come to the phone. I'll come into the microphone, Mr. Chairman. Those maps, as someone mentioned earlier, were put on the county's website as a resource back probably a couple of years ago. There was some discussion about how accurate these predicted maps were on identifying specific parcels and to determine whether or they were or were not in the slope hazard area. And I think that the discussion was that these are predictive maps. These products, however, are intended to serve for general planning purposes only and are provided on an as-is basis. These maps and products do not substitute for on-the-ground site assessment by qualified individuals. And the North Carolina Geological Survey themselves refer to these areas as potential risk, as general areas and not specific areas. And I think one of the problems that we were having from an administrative standpoint, and Mr. Morgan and Mr. Rowland can clarify that, is that the maps are very good for identifying areas, but not as good a scale as we would need in order to use them for administrative legal requirements as far as plats that are being produced or approved by the planning board. For example, the floodplain maps are to the scale that you can identify very small pieces of property within the flood zones. My understanding is that the slope hazard maps were not detailed enough to identify property specifically, and so if you're going to use it for regulatory purposes, you would have to have much more detail than what is included in that in those maps as they currently exist. And that's my understanding, Mr. Moore.
I can answer your question. The statement about the scale of those maps being 1 to 24,000 feet is recorded in a document, Summary of Slope Moving Hazard Maps and Data from Macon County by the North Carolina Geological Survey, dated September 29, 2006. And it says these data are intended to be used at a 1 to 24,000 scale. This is the paper maps that Macon County was presenting.
Those are the maps that we're using, and the way the ordinance is written in the subdivision ordinance, they're required, any plats that are turned in, if they're suspected of being in the slope hazard areas, are required by the ordinance to have that stamp on it. That's a regulatory process, and without proper background and proper identification of specific parcels, it's hard to use a planning map for a regulatory map, and that's one of the problems that I think we're running into in the planning department.
It is. In reading this document, and I've read it several times when it was presented to us in 2006, and between now and then and today. And I can get the sense that it was actually created with regulation in mind. And it's stated, as Mr. Horton has stated, that it's a planning tool and be used for that. We can use it for that in the way that the county decides to. But with that statement, and this is the opinion of the county staff, myself, with that statement in the subdivision ordinance, we're using them as a regulatory tool. I don't think that was the intent of Macon County at the time when we adopted the subdivision ordinance, that we use those maps as a regulatory tool.
There are 4 counties, I think, that have these maps, in addition to Macon, I think Henderson County, Buncombe County, and Watauga County. And I don't know if any of the other counties are using them in a regulatory purpose or not. I don't know if y'all had a chance to check on that, but it was my understanding that none of the other counties that have the maps are using them in a regulatory manner. They're using them as a tool, as you said, for planning and so forth, and it's available, but they're not using it as a regulatory measure. Is that correct?
And if I may, I believe that if Macon County desires at some point in time to use those maps as a regulatory tool, we should have an ordinance to that effect. We have to consider these maps. Are these actually our maps? And I don't think that's ever been considered by the citizens of Macon County or the board. That sits here anyway. I'm not sure about that prior board. So if you want us to use it as a regulatory tool, that's at your discretion.
I think we're still in consent. I'd like to make a motion to.
I think the board's still in consent. I'd like to make a motion to drop it from this ordinance as we stated in our last meeting.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
Let me state that, gosh, you just can't make everybody happy.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been there how long?
I honestly don't have a problem personally with these maps being a recommended resource. I don't have a problem with them being an available resource. I have a slight problem with them being a required resource. So with that in mind, I'll second the motion.
Discussion.
I assume that motion is to adopt this amendment to the ordinance.
That's what I understood. This,
Is that okay?
sometimes it's easier up there than other times. This is one of those times that's not easy. I think that the maps are a great resource. I think we heard a lot of people that are a whole lot more eloquent than I am stand up and say tonight why information is important. And they're right. There's no doubt they're right. I would love to see if there was in some way that we can maintain the availability of the map without putting it in a regulatory spot. I don't have a snappy answer for that. I wish I did, but my brain's so tired right now, I'm not sure I can come up with it. It is a public record. I guess what I'm saying is, you know, there's a lot of things that got thrown around here tonight that are public record, like the Constitution of the United States, but there's a lot of people that couldn't find it with both hands. My feeling is that we would, I have no problem with this. There's a fairness issue here, and there's no way I can get around it. There's a fairness issue, and I can't get past that, and it pains me greatly. And if there's any way we can somehow refer to and make it at least knowledgeable to people coming in here that those maps exist, without putting an undue burden on the developer to place that on his plat, which we all know what that means. They read the words, they may never look at the map. And I don't have a snappy answer for you, Mr. Chairman, and I don't even know that I've even made any sense. But it's a painful vote, but I just don't think that as I look at that map matches up with the floodplain map. It just doesn't. And there's a, you know, but I don't want to, I know they're public record, Chester, but I mean, if there's a way that at least we can keep them to where people can refer to them easily. Like I say, the general statutes are public record too, but I don't go into them unless I can't sleep. So, you know, I'd love to see if somebody's got a better way than I've got of figuring out how to do that, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Manager, but, you know, it pains me, but I don't see the accuracies there. That's all I'll say.
Not accuracy, precision, excuse me, I used the wrong word, precision.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Well, back when these maps were presented in 2006, Peach Creek, the reason we were number one, of course, was because of the Peach Creek disaster. After the 4 counties, of course, the legislature pulled the funding to do these maps. I think each county has struggled like we're struggling. Not so much with the map, but with the scale. And when you go to some of these downslope areas, and when you have a piece of property and they're red, and it's just too big, I think, for the landowners of Macon County and the taxpayers of Macon County who own this property. We've not adopted these maps, so neither should they be regulatory maps. I think they should be available if they want to look at these maps and say this has been identified. But I don't know of nobody in the county that can say for certain, you know, that the science says this is going to happen here. There's a likelihood. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would support the motion.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for question. All in favor of the motion as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Folks, let me say this before you leave. I think we have a whole lot of rest of the agenda left, and I'm glad we're able to provide entertainment or keep you amused for 5 hours. But I think we've had about all we can do. So we're going to recess the meeting until the end of February. We'll agree on a date before we leave out the single.
28th.
28th at 6 o'clock.
February 28th, that Tuesday?
That's a Tuesday, that's 2 weeks from tonight.
At 6 o'clock at 5 West Main Street.
No. The 28th at Macon Bank.
Huh?
Ain't that when we meet in school?
No, that's
I think it is.
Yes, it will.
Lori's thinking March.
You set a date?
So we did. Do you have that down, Ron?
I don't have it down, I'm sorry. But I probably have it.
What did we communicate with them?
Yes, I communicated to the bank, we reserved the room.
I was thinking it was March.
Was it March?
March.
I'm not showing on the calendar.
I'm not able.
Yeah, I believe it was going to be March.
I'm talking
That's
about
at school board.
from our
March
Thursday
6th.
It was
night
going to be
meeting.
March because, well, you're
The
going to have your
superintendent seemed like he had looked at the
28th
next one
because
last
if they
week
were
for
going to
March.
apply for any of that extra money, you would need to have that done and approved by the county before the end of February. So I think your 28th meeting with the county commissioners anticipated continuation if it has to be.
Yeah, the joint meeting is going to be sometime in March.
You'll still do that?
I mean, I'm still in the hell with it.
Okay. We need to announce when we're adjourning too, right? Or when we're recessing too. You have that?
You're gonna do closed session?
Yeah, we're gonna do
Need to have a closed session.
Go ahead and tell the folks the date and time and place, or?
We'll just go to the 28th, whatever that is.
If completely, if you recess this meeting until the 28th, and then we may have to, the mayor may not have to reschedule our joint meeting with the school board.
Okay.
I'm sorry I don't have that date, but they say it's March, so we never did. I think we were gonna try to reserve a room.
Waiting for more money, so you have to, they want to bring it up to the continuation meeting, so you plan it when the board.
That's what we had with the board.
Yeah, if you plan it with the continuation.
And we were gonna see if we could get the room with the bank.
Did
I
say
done
it's
that, but
gonna
it's
be-
gonna be all kinds
But
of stuff.
we want to see if they were gonna get more money, and y'all need, they need Board of County Commissioners action on that, you had to meet before the end of this month.
Yeah,
I think, is that right?
yes, that's why you said you were gonna meet on the 28th for your continuation meeting.
Yeah, so we talked about meeting on the 21st, we couldn't do that because of conflicts.
So we can take
that.
action.
Get it into this month,
that's
and come up with the
Of course, it's not
28th.
free money.
Okay.
I think we still need to have a joint meeting with them, but I think that was gonna be latter part of March after the 15th.
All right, go ahead and announce, we do have a request from our attorney, to go into closed session,
For two purposes, to maintain attorney-client privilege and to
privilege.
discuss, the possibility of acquisition of certain property. Again, this property is owned by the, Macon County Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association. It's located off of, Windy Gap Road, over by the state maintenance shed. And, the purpose for which it would be used would possibly include child.
okay? And if you didn't catch all that, we're gonna go into closed session, but we are continuing this meeting, on Tuesday, February 28th, 6:00 p.m., 5 West Main Street, Franklin, North Carolina. We have a motion to go into closed session. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Carl, thank you. Thank you, Miles.
Hey, at the end of the day, you guys got her done, so hey, we don't always get what we want, but
Thank you.
what you got.
See you, dude.
You're a guy.